After my cousin claimed my inheritance, my revenge was exposing Grandpa's hidden legacy and securing what was rightfully mine. "You can't seriously think you deserve any part of Grandpa's estate," Jessica sneered, her voice rising above the murmur of departing mourners. "You're not even his real granddaughter." The memorial service for my grandfather had just ended, and most family members were filing out of the small chapel in Portland. The scent of lilies, his favorite flower, still hung in the air. "That's not fair, Jessica," I responded, trying to keep my voice steady. "Grandpa Robert never made that distinction. I was his granddaughter, adoption or not. Blood is blood." "Hope," she said, smoothing her black dress with manicured hands, "you don't have a drop of his. The family legacy belongs to actual family members." I felt a heaviness in my chest that had nothing to do with grief. He was my grandfather for 25 years. That counts for something. "It counts for nothing legally," Jessica shot back, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "Look, I'm his only biological grandchild. Everything should come to me. If you fight this, you'll just embarrass yourself. My name is Hope Smith, 27 years old, adopted as a toddler by my parents, David and Catherine. My grandfather Robert was the one person who never made me feel less than because of my adoption. He took me fishing on summer mornings, taught me to play chess, and told me stories about our family history as if it were just as much mine as anyone else's. All I wanted was for his memory to be honored properly, for his possessions and keepsakes to be distributed as he would have wanted. Standing in my way was Jessica, my cousin, who had always treated my place in the family as provisional at best, fraudulent at worst. "This isn't about the money," I said, though the inheritance was substantial. Grandpa Robert had done well for himself as an architect, with properties and investments worth discussing. It's about respecting his wishes. "His wishes would have been for his legacy to stay in the family," Jessica replied with a dismissive wave. "Just accept reality, Hope. You're the charity case my grandparents took pity on because Aunt Catherine couldn't have children of her own." The words stung, but before I could respond, Uncle Philip, Jessica's father, approached with the family lawyer. "I've scheduled a preliminary meeting about Robert's estate for next week," the lawyer, Mr. Harrison, informed us. "I know this is a difficult time, but it's best to address these matters promptly." Jessica flashed me a triumphant smile. "Wonderful. We can settle this quickly then." As they walked away, I noticed something fall from Mr. Harrison's portfolio, a sealed envelope with my name written in my grandfather's distinctive handwriting. I quickly picked it up, but not before spotting what was written in the corner, to be opened only in the event of family dispute. My grandfather, it seemed, had anticipated this conflict, and somehow I sensed that Jessica's confidence might be more fragile than she knew. My adoption was never a secret in our family. My parents were always open about it, telling me the story of how they'd fallen in love with me the moment they saw me. I was 2 years old when they brought me home, and while I have no memories of life before them, I grew up knowing I was chosen rather than born into the family. Grandpa Robert embraced me wholeheartedly from the beginning. "Family isn't about blood," he often told me. "It's about who you choose to love." His wife, Grandma Eleanor, had been equally accepting until her death 5 years ago. In many ways, their unconditional love helped me navigate the occasional awkwardness of being the only adopted member of an otherwise biological family. Jessica and I were born just 3 months apart, but we could never have been more different. Where I was studious and introspective, she was social and outspoken. I pursued a career in library science, preserving history and stories. She became a real estate agent, always focused on the material value of things. Our childhood was peppered with minor competitions, usual cousin rivalry, but there had always been an undercurrent of something more hostile from her side. "You're so lucky," she once told me when we were teenagers. "You get to be part of the family without having to deal with the expectations. Nobody makes you learn about the family business or attend those boring historical society events." She didn't realize that I would have welcomed those expectations. Instead, I had to insert myself, always volunteering to help Grandpa with his architectural archives or asking to attend the historical society gatherings. I wanted that connection to a past I hadn't biologically shared. Grandpa seemed to understand. He made special time for me, sharing family stories and teaching me about our heritage. "You're a Smith now," he'd say. "That history belongs to you, too." He gave me a beautiful leather-bound journal for my 18th birthday, filled with family photographs, anecdotes, and his own sketches of significant places in our family history. Jessica received a similar gift, a gold locket with Grandma Eleanor's portrait inside. She wore it occasionally, usually during family gatherings when it would be noticed, but I slept with my journal beside my bed for years. Our relationship deteriorated further after Grandpa Robert's health began to fail. Jessica visited him infrequently, always with expensive gifts but rarely with time to spare. I visited weekly, often reading to him or simply sitting in companionable silence while he dozed. Sometimes I caught him watching me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher, something between concern and determination. Once, when I was helping him organize his desk, I found adoption papers among his files, not mine, but far older ones. When I asked about them, he quickly tucked them away. "That's a story for another time," he said, "when it's needed." I didn't press him then. Now, I wonder if I should have. The day of the preliminary meeting arrived with a dreary Portland rain that matched my mood. I arrived early at Mr. Harrison's office, only to find Jessica and Uncle Philip already there, huddled in conversation with the lawyer. They fell silent when I entered, exchanging glances that made my stomach tighten. "Hope, thank you for joining us," Mr. Harrison said, gesturing to the remaining chair. "We were just discussing some preliminary matters." "I'm sure you were," I replied, taking my seat and placing my grandfather's sealed envelope on the table in front of me. I hadn't opened it yet, wanting to respect his wishes about the timing. Jessica's eyes darted to the envelope. "What's that?" "Something Grandpa left for me," I said simply. Mr. Harrison cleared his throat. "Yes, well, Robert left several personal messages, but first, let's discuss the general structure of the estate." He outlined the assets, the historic family home in Portland's West Hills, a vacation property on the Oregon coast, investment accounts, and a collection of rare architectural drawings valued at over $500,000. It was substantial, more than I had realized. "Now, to the matter of distribution," Mr. Harrison continued. "Robert's will specifies that the estate should be divided equally between his 2 grandchildren." "What?" Jessica blurted, her composure slipping. "That can't be right." Mr. Harrison adjusted his glasses. "I assure you, the will is quite clear." "But she's adopted," Uncle Philip interjected, pointing at me. "She's not a blood relative." "The will specifically names Hope Smith as a beneficiary," the lawyer replied firmly. Jessica's face flushed with anger. "This is absurd. My grandfather wouldn't have wanted family heirlooms going to someone who isn't even family." "I am family," I said quietly. "Not in any way that counts," Jessica snapped. She turned to Mr. Harrison. "I want to contest the will. She must have manipulated him when he was ill. There's no other explanation." "That's a serious accusation," Mr. Harrison replied, his tone sharpening. "It's the only logical explanation," Jessica insisted. "She spent all that time with him when he was vulnerable, reading to him, helping with his papers. Who knows what she was really doing?" The implications stung. "I was being a granddaughter," I said. "Something you apparently couldn't be bothered to do." "You're not his granddaughter," Jessica shouted. "You're just some random child my aunt and uncle picked up because they couldn't have kids of their own. You have no right to his legacy, no right to anything with the Smith name on it." The room fell silent. Even Uncle Philip looked uncomfortable. "Jessica," I began, my voice shaking despite my efforts to control it, "Grandpa Robert never saw me as less than family." "Then he was either senile or too kind for his own good," she replied coldly. "Either way, I demand a formal investigation into the circumstances surrounding his will. I am the only true Smith grandchild, and I won't let you steal what rightfully belongs to me." I sat there, stunned by the viciousness of her attack. This was beyond our usual tension. This was a full declaration of war. Mr. Harrison looked between us, then cleared his throat. "In light of this disagreement, I suggest we postpone further discussion. I'll need to review some matters before we proceed." He glanced at the envelope in front of me. "And I believe some additional documents may need to be considered." As we left the office, Jessica brushed past me, then turned. "This isn't over," she whispered. "You might have fooled Grandpa, but you're not fooling me. You will always be an outsider." Her words echoed in my mind as I clutched the still sealed envelope. Whatever it contained, I now knew I would need it. This wasn't just about the inheritance anymore, it was about my very place in the family I had always called my own. That night, I sat on my bed with Grandpa Robert's envelope in my trembling hands. To be opened only in the event of family dispute, the inscription read. Well, if Jessica's declaration of war didn't qualify as a dispute, nothing would. Carefully breaking the seal, I found a brief letter and a small key inside. "My dear Hope," the letter began. If you're reading this, then my fears have been realized, and Jessica has challenged your place in the family and in my estate. This key opens the bottom drawer of my desk in the study, the one I always kept locked. Inside, you'll find documentation that may help, along with another letter explaining everything more fully. Whatever happens, remember that family is about love, not blood. I have always considered you my granddaughter, and nothing can change that. With all my love, Grandpa Robert. The letter brought tears to my eyes, but it also steeled my resolve. The next day, I drove to the family home, using my key to let myself in. The house felt eerily quiet without Grandpa's presence. I made my way to his study, a wood-paneled room filled with books and architectural drawings. Using the key from the envelope, I unlocked the desk drawer and found a thick folder with my name on it, along with a second sealed envelope. I was about to open it when I heard the front door open. "Hello? Is someone here?" It was Jessica's voice. Quickly, I tucked the folder and envelope into my bag and shut the drawer. I had every right to be there, but I didn't want a confrontation. Too late. Jessica appeared in the doorway, her eyes narrowing when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" "Getting some personal items Grandpa wanted me to have," I replied, striving for a casual tone. "Nothing in this house is yours yet," she said, stepping closer. "The will is being contested, remember? You shouldn't be here taking things." "I'm not taking things. I'm retrieving specific items Grandpa left for me." Jessica's expression darkened. "You really won't let this go, will you? I spoke with a lawyer of my own yesterday. He says I have a strong case for being the sole heir. Adopted grandchildren don't have the same rights as biological ones in many situations." "That's not true," I countered, though, in truth, I wasn't certain of the legal details. "It doesn't matter," she continued, circling the desk between us. "Even if the law is on your side, do you really want to drag this family through a court battle? Think about Aunt Catherine and Uncle David. How do you think they'll feel watching you fight over Grandpa's money?" The emotional manipulation was transparent but effective. My parents had always been uncomfortable with conflict, and a prolonged legal battle would distress them deeply. "This isn't about money," I insisted. "It's about respecting Grandpa's wishes and my place in this family." Jessica laughed coldly. "Your place in this family was always charitable inclusion. Don't make it awkward for everyone by pretending it was more than that." I gripped my bag tighter, feeling the outline of Grandpa's folder inside. "I think we're done here," I said, moving toward the door. "Wait," Jessica called, her tone suddenly shifting. "Look, maybe I've been too harsh. We're both upset about Grandpa. What if we find a compromise?" The abrupt change made me wary. "What kind of compromise?" "You agree not to contest anything, and I'll make sure you get some meaningful keepsakes. The chess set he taught you on, his collection of first-edition architecture books, items with sentimental value." The offer was supposed to sound generous, but it was insulting, offering trinkets while she took everything of substantial value. "I'll consider it," I said, not wanting to show my hand yet, but I need time to think. Jessica smiled, obviously believing she had won. "Of course. Take all the time you need. Just don't contact me until you've made your decision. I prefer to handle this through the lawyers anyway." "Fine," I agreed. "I won't contact you until everything is settled." Her smile widened. "As if I'd need anything from you," she laughed. "This is just me being kind." As I left the house, clutching my bag with Grandpa's documents inside, I felt both anger and determination. Jessica thought she was being magnanimous, offering crumbs from what she saw as her rightful inheritance, but Grandpa had left me something that might change everything, and I intended to find out what it was. Back at my apartment, I opened the folder and began reading through the documents. What I found left me breathless. Grandpa Robert had indeed anticipated this conflict and had prepared for it far more thoroughly than either Jessica or I could have imagined. The folder contained documents dating back over 60 years, beginning with a set of yellowed papers I initially didn't understand: birth certificates, death certificates, adoption papers, none bearing names I recognized immediately. Then I came to the second sealed envelope. Inside was a lengthy letter in my grandfather's handwriting dated just 6 months before his death. "My dearest Hope," it began, "what I'm about to tell you is a family secret I've kept for most of my life. I always intended to share it eventually, but perhaps I waited too long. I am not a Smith by birth. I was born Robert Collins, orphaned at age 7 during the Depression, and adopted by Thomas and Margaret Smith when I was 9 years old. The documents you now hold are the proof. The Smiths gave me their name, their love, and eventually their architectural firm. They raised me as their own son, never once making me feel like less than their true child. They taught me that family is created through love and commitment, not merely through biology. This is why I have always felt such a special connection to you, Hope. We share the experience of being chosen, of knowing that our place in this family came through deliberate love rather than chance. What you may find most surprising is that Philip is not my biological son either. Eleanor and I struggled with infertility for many years before adopting Philip as an infant. We raised him as our son, just as I had been raised as a Smith. When he was in his 20s, he married Caroline, and they later had Jessica. Philip has always known he was adopted, though we rarely discussed it. As he grew older, he seemed uncomfortable with the fact, especially after Jessica was born. I believe he wanted to feel like he had created a real bloodline for the family that had accepted him. The irony, of course, is that none of us, not me, not Philip, not Jessica, are Smiths by blood. Jessica's claim to being the only real Smith grandchild is based on a fiction. We are all Smiths by choice and by love, which to me has always been the truer definition of family. I have never told Philip that I too was adopted. Perhaps that was a mistake, but I am telling you now because I fear that after my death, your place in the family might be challenged in ways that would break my heart. The documents I've left you prove everything I've written here. Use them if you must, though I hope it doesn't come to that. In my will, I have divided my estate equally between you and Jessica, as I believe that is only fair. You are both my grandchildren in every way that matters. Remember that I love you and that nothing can ever change the fact that you are and always will be my granddaughter. With all my love, Grandpa Robert. I sat back, stunned. The revelation changed everything. Not only was my grandfather adopted, but so was Uncle Philip, meaning Jessica herself was no more biologically a Smith than I was. The real granddaughter distinction she had wielded like a weapon was meaningless. Among the documents was a detailed family tree Grandpa had constructed, showing all the adoptions across generations. There were also photographs I'd never seen before, a young Robert with his adoptive parents, Philip as a baby being held by Grandma Eleanor, and more recent ones of me with Grandpa, his notes about our special bond scribbled on the back. The final document was a legal affidavit he had prepared, formally stating his wishes that I be treated as his legitimate granddaughter and heir, with detailed reasoning about our shared experience of adoption into the Smith family. It was notarized and dated just weeks before his death, when he was still entirely lucid, according to his doctor's attached statements. I realized now why he had spent so much time teaching me about family history, why he had given me the journal filled with Smith family stories and photographs. He wasn't just being kind, he was deliberately establishing my place in the family legacy, ensuring I would have the tools to defend it if necessary. My phone buzzed with a text from Mr. Harrison. Jessica's lawyer has officially filed to contest the will. We need to meet as soon as possible. I took a deep breath, gathering the documents into the folder. For years, I had struggled with feeling like an outsider, wondering if I truly belonged. Now I understood that my grandfather had felt the same way, and yet he had become the very heart of the Smith family, its most devoted guardian and historian. The revelation wasn't just ammunition in a legal battle. It was a profound reframing of my entire family history. What Jessica saw as a weakness, my adoption, was actually the strongest connection between Grandpa Robert and me. I belonged in this family, not despite being adopted, but because of it. The next morning, I met with Mr. Harrison at his office, bringing Grandpa's folder of documents with me. As I spread them across his desk, his expression shifted from professional neutrality to genuine surprise. "This is quite extraordinary," he said, examining the adoption papers. "I had no idea Robert was adopted himself. He never mentioned it during our years working together. Apparently, it was a closely guarded family secret," I explained. "Even Uncle Philip doesn't know." Mr. Harrison adjusted his glasses. "These documents change the landscape considerably. Jessica's entire claim rests on her supposed biological connection to the Smith family, which these papers effectively nullify. So, what do we do now?" "We could present these immediately," he mused, "but that might simply prompt them to find another angle of attack. Jessica seems determined to contest the will regardless of the facts." He was right. Jessica's objection to my inheritance wasn't really about biology, it was about greed and her refusal to see me as family. Evidence wouldn't necessarily change her attitude. I think, Mr. Harrison continued, we should let them proceed with their current strategy. Once they've fully committed to the biological argument in court, we'll introduce these documents for maximum impact. The plan made sense, but it meant wading through what could be months of legal proceedings, all while being treated as an outsider by my own family. There's something else to consider, I said. Uncle Philip, he's Jessica's father, and according to these papers, he's adopted too. Finding this out during a court case could be traumatic for him. Mr. Harrison nodded thoughtfully. A valid concern. Perhaps we should approach him privately before things escalate further. The next day, I invited Uncle Philip to meet at a quiet cafe downtown. He arrived looking harried, his expression wary when he saw me. I can't discuss the estate matter, Hope, he said immediately. Our lawyers should handle everything. This isn't about the money, I assured him. It's about something Grandpa wanted you to know. I slid an envelope across the table, not containing the full revelation but a gentle introduction to it, along with a few key documents and a personal letter from Grandpa Robert to Philip that had been in the folder. What's this? He asked suspiciously. Just read it, please. It's important. He opened the envelope reluctantly, his eyes scanning the papers inside. As he read, his face paled. This can't be right, he whispered. Dad was adopted? Yes, I confirmed gently. Just like you, just like me. His head snapped up. How did you know I was… It's all in Grandpa's papers, I explained. He left me documentation explaining the family history. None of us, not you, not Jessica, not me, are biologically Smiths. We're all Smiths by adoption and love. Uncle Philip sat back, visibly shaken. He never told me. All these years… I think he worried you might see it as diminishing your connection to the family, I suggested, especially since you've always seemed uncomfortable about your own adoption. He didn't deny it. I just wanted Jessica to have what I didn't, a clear, unquestioned place in the family. I understand, I said, and I did. But Grandpa Robert believed family was about more than blood. That's why he left his estate to both of his grandchildren equally. Uncle Philip rubbed his face, looking suddenly tired. Jessica won't accept this. She's convinced herself she's the only legitimate heir. Then she needs to know the truth too, I said firmly. He shook his head. Not from me. I can't be the one to tell her. As he left the cafe, I felt a mixture of sympathy and frustration. Uncle Philip clearly needed time to process this revelation, but his reluctance to confront Jessica left me in a difficult position. That evening, I received a call from Jessica's lawyer. They were escalating their challenge to the will, demanding an emergency hearing to prevent any distribution of assets until Jessica's claim as the sole biological heir could be heard. Mr. Harrison called shortly after. They're accelerating things, he informed me. The hearing is set for next week. We need to decide now, do we present Robert's documents immediately or wait for the hearing? I thought about Uncle Philip's distress, about Jessica's lifetime of believing herself to be uniquely entitled to the Smith legacy, and about Grandpa Robert's wish for both his granddaughters to share equally in his estate. We'll wait, I decided. Let them make their case first, but we should be fully prepared. And Philip, should we count on his support? I sighed. No, I think he'll stay on the sidelines. This will come down to Grandpa's words versus Jessica's claims. As I hung up, I realized with sudden clarity what Grandpa Robert had done by leaving me these documents. He wasn't just helping me secure my inheritance, he was entrusting me with the true Smith family legacy, the understanding that family is created through choice and love, not blood. The court case wouldn't just determine who received his material assets, it would establish which vision of family would prevail. 5 months after our confrontation at the memorial service, we gathered in a downtown Portland courthouse for the final hearing. The elegant wood-paneled room felt too formal for what was essentially a family dispute, but Jessica had pushed us to this point. She sat across the aisle with her lawyers, dressed impeccably in a conservative suit, exuding confidence. Uncle Philip sat behind her, looking uncomfortable but resigned. My parents were beside me, having finally been convinced to attend after initially wanting to stay neutral. Jessica's lawyer presented their case first, emphasizing her status as the only biological Smith heir and suggesting that my grandfather must have been manipulated or confused when creating his will. He presented a revised family tree, highlighting Jessica's direct bloodline to the Smith family while showing my adoption as a clear break in lineage. Robert Smith's intent was clear: to keep family assets within the family, her lawyer argued. Hope Smith, as an adopted grandchild, does not carry the Smith legacy in the same fundamental way that Jessica does. When it was our turn, Mr. Harrison approached the bench calmly. Your Honor, before I present our case, I would like to submit additional documentation that directly addresses the claims we've just heard. He distributed copies of Grandpa Robert's documents to the judge, Jessica's lawyers, and Uncle Philip. As they reviewed the papers, a wave of whispers swept through the room. Jessica's face, previously smug, gradually transformed, first confused, then shocked, finally ashen. These authenticated documents, Mr. Harrison continued, prove that Robert Smith himself was adopted into the Smith family as a child. Further, they confirm that Philip Smith, Jessica's father, was also adopted as an infant. Neither Jessica nor Hope has a biological connection to the Smith bloodline, as no such bloodline exists in this family. The judge peered over her glasses at Jessica's lawyer. Given this evidence, do you wish to revise your argument about biological heritage being the determinant of inheritance rights? Jessica's lawyer stammered, clearly blindsided. Jessica herself sat frozen, the papers trembling in her hands. I met her eyes across the courtroom. For once, she had nothing to say. No cutting remark, no dismissive comment about my place in the family. The foundation of her entire claim had just crumbled beneath her. The true Smith legacy wasn't in blood but in love, exactly as Grandpa Robert had always believed. Case dismissed, the judge declared after Jessica's lawyers withdrew their petition. The will shall be executed as written, with the estate divided equally between both grandchildren. Outside the courthouse, rain had given way to tentative sunshine, a perfect Portland spring day. Jessica stood alone on the steps, still clutching the documents that had shattered her worldview. When she saw me approach, she visibly stiffened. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded, her voice hoarse. "You let me go in there and humiliate myself." "You wouldn't have believed me," I replied simply, "and you made it clear you didn't want to hear from me until the estate was settled." She looked away. "My whole life, Dad told me how important it was to continue the Smith family line, how I was special because I was carrying on Grandpa's legacy." Her laugh was bitter. "What a joke. There is no Smith bloodline." "There is a Smith legacy, though," I said, "just not the one you thought. Grandpa believed family was created through love and choice, not blood. That's why he was so accepting of my adoption, because he was adopted too. That's the real Smith tradition." Uncle Philip approached hesitantly. "I'm sorry, Jessica. I should have told you about my adoption years ago. I just wanted you to feel secure in your place in the family." "By letting me believe a lie?" she challenged. "By letting you know you were loved," he countered. Jessica fell silent, the reality of our shared family history finally sinking in. In the end, we honored Grandpa Robert's wishes. The estate was divided equally, with Jessica receiving the coastal property she had always loved, while I took the family home in Portland. The architectural drawings, we agreed, would be donated to the university where Grandpa had taught, ensuring his professional legacy would continue to inspire future generations. As for our relationship, Jessica and I aren't close. Too much has happened for an instant reconciliation, but at a small gathering to distribute Grandpa's personal effects, she approached me with his chess set in her hands. "He taught you to play on this," she said, offering it to me. "You should have it." It wasn't an apology, not exactly, but it was an acknowledgement, a small recognition that we were both Smiths, not by blood, but by something far more meaningful, by Grandpa Robert's deliberate, enduring love. As I placed the chess set in my car, I found myself smiling. Grandpa had given me more than an equal share of his estate. He had given me the truth that had guided his life, that family is who you choose and who chooses you in return. That was a legacy worth more than any inheritance, and one I intended to honor for the rest of my life.